Never saw that coming. I've got a 70-year-old rival in love. On the 4th anniversary of my marriage to Qin Shokong, he showed up with a woman. Said she was his wife from the countryside when he was young. She had grey hair, skinny and dark. Hiding behind him, I stood my ground. No way was I letting her in. Qin Shokong said, "This is the woman I married when I had nothing. I can't just abandon her." My son said, "Mom, she's been waiting her whole life. You're a retired teacher. How come you're so unreasonable?" Suddenly I was the bad guy to the whole family. So I packed my clothes and went to a nursing home by myself. 2 months later, that woman showed up at the nursing home gate. She asked with a thick accent, "Hey sis, is this place any good to live in? I want to come too." Xianghua reminds you. The exciting story is about to start. Today is the 4th anniversary of my marriage to Qin Shokong. Qin Shokong and our son Qin Song were nowhere to be seen all day. My daughter-in-law and I set the dishes on the table and kept waiting. While playing with my little grandson on the couch, I asked again what the two of them were doing. My daughter-in-law forced a smile, trying to comfort me. "Mom, Dad and Qin Song must be getting you a gift. Don't worry. Just wait a little longer." As soon as she said that, we heard the key turning in the lock. I turned to look. The two of them looked travel-worn, with mud on the bottom of their pants. I quickly walked up. "How'd you get like this?" Right then, before I could finish, I saw a woman standing at the door, wearing a wrinkled floral shirt, peeking inside nervously. Qin Shokong pulled her forward and said to me, "This is the woman I married in the countryside when I was young. She waited over 40 years for me. I only found her recently." My mind went completely blank, and my whole body froze. Right then, the woman suddenly spoke up. She called me sister with an accent. I snapped back to reality, startled. I turned my head to look at Qin Shokong. "So what now?" Qin Shokong glanced at his son. They looked like they'd already planned it out on the way. He wanted to bring her home to live with us. "If you're not okay with it, I'll let her stay at our son's place first." The son chimed in from the side. "Mom, Aunt Lotus is really pitiful. She's alone in the countryside with no one to take care of her. Just let her stay here with us." I took a deep breath. I waited until my breathing was steady before speaking. "You two cooked all this up, just to make me step aside for some woman nobody knows?" As soon as Qin Shokong heard that, he got upset. His eyebrows furrowed tightly. "What kind of talk is that? What do you mean some woman nobody knows? When I met her, you weren't even around yet." I stared hard at my 70-year-old husband. Then I looked at that woman. "Do you two have a marriage certificate?" Before Qin Shokong could answer, the woman behind him just shook her head. Years of good upbringing helped me keep my dignity. I held back the urge to just start cursing. I nodded. "All right then. That means I'm not the one home-wrecking." Then I turned to face Qin Shokong. "You and I have a marriage certificate. Our relationship is protected by law. I have the right to not let her stay in our house." Hearing all of that, the woman looked a bit timid and hid behind Qin Shokong. Qin Shokong's face immediately darkened. He pointed at me and said in a righteous tone, "She's my wife from way back. I can't just abandon her." The son also looked disapproving. "Mom, she's waited her whole life. You're a retired teacher. How can you be so unreasonable?" Seeing the two of them so sure of themselves, I looked over at my daughter-in-law, standing by the dinner table. Our eyes met. She avoided my gaze, looked down, and stayed silent. I felt a chill in my heart. So they all knew about this. I was the only one left in the dark. They really teamed up to give me a big surprise. I was so angry I laughed. I nodded. Pointing at them I said, "You guys figure it out. In this house it's either him or me. Me or him." After I said that I left my son's house. Qin Shokong and I lived next door to our son. It was so we could look after each other. I walked out, opened the door next door. Looking at all the photos of Qin Shokong and me in the room, big and small, from our youth to old age, I suddenly found it so ironic. After decades of being devoted to him, he actually brought another woman home on our anniversary. And he had the nerve to let her move into our house. Even with all the good upbringing I had, I couldn't keep my cool. Qin Shokong, my son and his family, none of us have talked to each other for a week. Qin Shokong still came home every day like usual. He'd go out to play chess when he had nothing to do. Living life just as easygoing as ever. It's like nothing had happened. I thought they had listened to me and sent that woman away. I still felt uneasy inside, but at our age, what else is there to kick up a fuss about? Since she was gone, I figured I'd just go along with the marriage. Then one day, I went out to take out the trash. The elevator door suddenly opened, and that woman my son called Aunt Lotus stepped out. She was carrying big bags of groceries. I was furious instantly. I stopped her. "Why are you still here?" Lotus seemed a little scared of me. As soon as she saw me, she stepped back. I really didn't want to cause trouble for her. If what Qin Shol said was true, then she was just a pitiful person who'd been tricked for decades. So I stared at the groceries she was holding for a few seconds. Then I followed her into my son's house. At this time of day, my son and daughter-in-law were both at work. As soon as I got in, I knew something was off. The nanny was gone. I called out to Lotus. "Where's the nanny?" She had an accent and stammered through an explanation. I only barely understood her. Turns out the very first day she came, my son had fired the nanny. Now Lotus was the one handling everything around the house. I turned and looked at my little grandbaby in the stroller. Then I see Heihua, Lotus quickly getting the milk powder ready. She rushes over to feed the kid. Seeing this, if I still didn't get it, what these two father and son were really up to, then I've wasted all these years living. When my little grandson was born, my son said he wanted me and Chin Shokung to take care of the kid. His excuse was that they had to work. But I was raised to not make life harder for yourself for no reason. So I straight up told him no. I said at the time, our family can afford to hire a nanny. We've lived most of our lives already. And we're almost 70 now. Taking care of a son is one thing, but a grandson too. People would laugh at us if they heard. After that, my son held a grudge against me. I knew that. But I didn't think I said anything wrong. Besides, families don't have real grudges. After my son hired a good nanny, our relationship went back to being happy and peaceful. But now looking at this, they brought this woman in to be a free nanny. I got so mad I almost couldn't breathe. I steadied myself, then charged into the kitchen. I grabbed Heihua's hand that was holding the spatula, and asked her, "What are you doing here?" She stopped. Without thinking much said, "They came and got me." I was so mad my fingertips trembled. I held back my anger and said, "Are these your son and grandson? Why are you taking care of them?" She gave a shy little smile, and said, "Take a rooster, be a rooster," a Chinese saying meaning a wife follows her husband. "Take a dog, be a dog." I stared at her hard, and she stared back, looking like it was totally normal. After a long moment, I just deflated. I let go of her hand, sighed helplessly, and gave up. When I got home, I thought about all the years Chin Shokung and I had been married. I was a teacher when I was young, and Chin Shokung was just a poor guy. We met by accident, hit it off right away. When I brought him home, my parents didn't say anything in front of him, but afterward, they absolutely refused to let me be with him. Our family wasn't rich, but at least we were a scholarly family, and Chin Shokung was just a cook slinging a spatula in the cafeteria. But I was set on him. I thought he was steady and hardworking. Yi Guqing and Ta are together now. After we got together, he went out and opened a restaurant of his own. Business was pretty good, and he saved up a bit of money. So 2 years later, ignoring his family's objections, I married him. But after we got married, I realized we had a lot of differences in values. For example, he thinks suffering is a traditional virtue. Even when I was giving birth to our child, because I wanted to go to the hospital, and he said just hire a midwife, we had a huge fight. I got so mad my water broke on the spot. It scared him pretty bad, and he carried me to the nearest hospital that night. Then after the kid was born, he'd get sick a lot. He'd tell me to just use some old folk remedy and wrap him up to sweat it out. Over that kind of stuff, we've fought plenty of times. But the good thing is, most of the time he still listens to me. So we've stumbled along, made it all the way to now. This is the first time we've reached this point, and it's only now that I realize, this man I've slept beside for 50 years, has been lying to me the whole time from start to finish. I sat on the couch until night fell, and finally made up my mind about the thought that had been swirling in my heart. That evening, the smell of hot food drifted over from next door. I grabbed my bag, and knocked on the neighbor's door. When he saw it was me, my son didn't say a word, and just walked back to the table. As for Heihua, that new woman he brought home, she saw me and waved me over. "Sis, come eat too." I ignored him, walked over to the table and sat down. For a moment nobody in the room spoke, like they were waiting for me to apologize first. I smiled, pulled out what I'd prepared from my bag, and laid it on the table. Then I announced solemnly, I said, in this house it's either him or me, so I found myself a retirement home. Once the divorce is through, I'll move in. As I spoke, I saw Chin Shokung's face full of disbelief. My son stared at me blankly. "Mom." My daughter-in-law got anxious too. She came over and grabbed my hand. "Mom, don't do anything rash. You have kids, why would you go to a nursing home? It's much better at home." I pulled my hand away, looked at Chin Shokung and kept going. And about the divorce property. That house next door was bought with money from both of us. Either we sell it now, and split the money 50-50, or I'll pay you back what you put in, based on the original price. After I said that, I got up and walked out. Chin Shokung finally seemed to snap out of it, slamming the dining table hard, yelling, "Shen Li, you're pushing it, aren't you?" Our son was also trying to talk me out of it from behind. "Mom, you're at your age. Why cause all this trouble? Our family is doing fine, isn't it?" I paused for a moment, turned around and walked back. Qin Shokang immediately had a smug look on his face and let out a cold snort. But I didn't even glance at him, walked a few steps over to Hihua, pulled a nursing home brochure out of my cloth bag and shoved it into his hand. Seeing him look completely lost, I frowned. Take a look too. Don't get played by someone and end up paying them money. With that, I turned and left, without looking back. Before getting the divorce and moving into the nursing home, I went back to the school where I used to teach. A student who had graduated years ago, now a teacher herself, came over to say hi. We started talking about old times, and naturally Qin Shokang came up. She asked how things were between him and me. I smiled and was honest. Teacher here, I'm getting divorced. She was shocked, eyes wide, frozen for a long moment, then gave me a thumbs up and sighed. Teacher, you're so cool. How many people can make the decision to get a divorce at this age? Even us younger folks can't match that. I couldn't help laughing out loud. Told her not to tease me. I'm her teacher. She has my contact info.
有自己的联系方式。
A lot of people from that school heard how I was doing and came to visit me at home. I spent decades teaching, and I had countless students. Just in the last few days, some became doctors, and some became cops. There were also those who used to be troublemakers, and now they're big bosses. One day there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and I saw a familiar face. The student in front of me said that back then, he was about to drop out. He wasn't that old now either. As he came in, he rubbed his hands nervously. He said, Teacher Shen, do you still remember me? Back when I couldn't afford the tuition, you covered it for me. Of course I remembered him. His grades weren't great back then, but he was hardworking. In his senior year of high school, he suddenly came to me and said he wanted to drop out. When I pushed him a bit, he told me it was because his grandma was sick. So I helped him out with the tuition, so he could focus on studying. Later he worked hard and got into a decent school. Thinking back to that, I looked at him in front of me. He kept his head low, like he didn't dare to look at me. Teacher Shen, I didn't amount to much. I went to college but still didn't finish it. I've been working odd jobs all these years, and now I'm delivering food. I was a bit surprised at first, but I quickly snapped out of it. I walked over and patted him on the shoulder, smiling to comfort him. You're still young, why would you say you didn't amount to anything? Look at me, I'm old, and I still got a divorce. As long as you have the determination to start, it's never too late. In the end he left wiping his tears. I knew he took it to heart. When the day of the divorce came, Qin Shokang finally decided to sell this house. I knew what he was thinking. After all, the market price of this house was way higher than back then. Qin Shokang definitely wouldn't give up a pile of easy cash. My son was really unhappy about it. He never had a good expression when he saw me. After all, if the house wasn't sold, once Qin Shokang and I are gone, it would gone to him. Now that plan's shot down, he's naturally pretty bitter toward me. On the day of the divorce, the sky was crystal clear. Qin Shokang and I kept our distance the whole way. You'd never guess we'd been together for decades. Walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Qin Shokang let out a sigh, his face full of disbelief. Shen Li, you made a huge deal out of nothing, even sold the house. Are you happy now? I tucked the divorce certificate away and nodded. Yeah, I'm happy. The only thing I'm not happy about is that I didn't see your true colors sooner, you old jerk. Wasted all these years before divorcing you. Qin Shokang glared at me hard and put a hand on his chest. I just can't stand how superior you act. You've been lording it over me our whole lives, always calling the shots. They say a good wife brings peace, but my biggest mistake was marrying you. I let out a cold laugh. Back when your crappy restaurant was in trouble, and my parents helped out, you sure didn't say that. Want the watermelon but cut the branch too? You're dreaming. As I said that, I casually hailed a taxi. Qin Shokang followed right behind me, planning to get in with me. Still running his mouth, I quickly slammed the car door shut, stared at him through the window. Still trying to get in? I think you're ugly, and you're dreaming too. He snapped and started cursing. Shen Li, you heartless witch. I rolled my eyes at him. You immortal menace. With that, I told the driver to go and sped off. Watching him flip out in the rearview mirror, I finally felt a weight lift off my chest. A couple of days later, I packed up and moved to the nursing home. Meanwhile, Qin Shokang moved into our son's place. Before leaving, he still couldn't resist being sarcastic. You lived a whole life, and now you're going to a nursing home. What a mess. I shot back at her. Going to a nursing home is better than looking at you. But don't worry. You'll be eating at banquets every day when you're old. He was so angry his eyelids twitched. He turned around and left. I heard people always feel uncomfortable in nursing homes at first. But honestly, I'm having a pretty good time here. The old ladies around here love to chat. And while they're at it, they curse out their ungrateful kids. My mom just spends her time gardening. She's so laid back it's ridiculous. But while I'm doing fine over here, Qin Shoukong's side is not going so well. I heard Qin Shoukong and Qin Song made Heihua live in the storage room. They have her do housework all day. And babysit the grandkid while they're at work. They also nitpick at her in front of others all the time. Calling her sloppy. Saying country women just don't know how to behave. One minute they say she doesn't use serving chopsticks when eating. The next they say she's too rough with the kid. One day the grandkid was crying loudly. Heihua thought he was hungry. So she heated up leftovers from the fridge for him. Turns out the food had gone bad. The kid ate it and started throwing up and having diarrhea. They had to rush him to the hospital for an IV at night. The son and daughter-in-law are super protective of that kid. Because of that one incident, they got really upset with Heihua. When I found out, I was shocked by how heartless this family is. They don't pay a cent, but they bring in a 70-year-old to work as a nanny. And on top of that, they keep complaining about everything. I suddenly felt a sense of pity for myself. People always say raise kids to take care of you in old age. Something like that. It's not even as safe as the old folks' home. 2 months later, I was taking a walk at the home that day, when I suddenly heard someone was looking for me outside. I went out to check. It was actually Lotus. He was still wearing that floral shirt, with cloth shoes on his feet. When he saw me, he shuffled his feet nervously, and asked in a thick accent, "Miss, is this place nice to stay? I wanna come too." A car drove by in front of us, kicking up a thin layer of dust. Looking at his blurry figure, I somehow brought him inside. By the time he sat down on the bed next to mine, I still hadn't snapped out of it. I looked at him full of ambition, and then at this blurry Lotus, and suddenly felt like I'd lost my mind. I don't hold any ill will toward him, and I even think he's a pitiful person too. But that doesn't mean I can get along with him all buddy-buddy. But this guy just can't read the room. He scooted over and sat next to me, then started rambling on about how hard it was for him to find this place. "Miss, I found a few young fellas on the road, asked around for ages, even took the wrong bus twice, before I finally got here." I glanced at him, and said casually, "You can't read, can you?" But Lotus nodded seriously, with an honest look on his face. "I can't read." I felt like a breath was stuck in my chest. Almost couldn't catch it. But then I thought again. He'd been stuck in the countryside all along. Probably never had the chance to go to school. Not being able to read makes sense. And me, the teacher type, I got caught up again. I sized him up a bit, grabbed the notebook off the table, put on my reading glasses, and crooked my finger at him. "Come here." Then I wrote his name in the notebook, and handed him the pen. "This is your name. Try writing it." Lotus took the pen, but held it in the most awkward way, like a chicken claw, so I had to pry open his death grip hand, and step by step reposition his fingers where they were supposed to go. Then he held his hand, guiding him stroke by stroke as he wrote. When he was done, he stared at the paper, for a long time lost in thought. I took a look. The writing was all crooked, but at least you could tell what those two characters were. Suddenly, he looked up and stared straight at me, asking, "Little sis, how's my handwriting?" When our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat. Those eyes, worn out by the years, at that moment seemed to reflect the brightest stars I'd ever seen. Maybe because I didn't say anything, he called out to me, and that snapped me back to reality. My mom always says I have a stubborn streak, and it showed perfectly right then. Realizing he had gotten to me, I didn't want to admit it. So, I randomly pointed at the words in the notebook, and said with disgust, "It looks like eels in a rice paddy. You need more practice." He nodded, then looked down at it again. Like one of those students I've taught, the really serious kind. When it was time to eat, Heihua sat across from me, grabbed his bowl, and just shoveled the food in. He ate so fast it was scary, and he kept smacking his lips. I couldn't help but frown, and quickly stopped him. "Hey, slow down. You gotta chew your food properly, or your stomach will get messed up. And eat quieter. It's not polite." He just grunted, and muttered under his breath, "City folks are so picky. We don't have all these rules." I had no idea what to do with him, so I just said, "Fine, do it your way then." Then I went back to eating my own meal. But as I ate, something felt off. Why was it so quiet across from me? I looked up. Turns out Heihua was eating while watching me, and actually copying my moves, pretty spot on. I couldn't help but burst out laughing, but I quickly held it in. Over the next few days, Hua kept practicing writing his name. Heihua kept practicing saying his name over and over. Sometimes he'd come over and ask me how to write a certain Chinese character. After a few days, the ones he wrote, the smoothest, were probably his name and mine. I had nothing better to do either, so I kept messing around with the plants I had growing on the windowsill outside. I've liked messing with plants since I was young, but I never could keep them alive. Before long, those flowers and plants started looking all droopy and sad. Today I happened to be watering them, and Lotus Heihua finished his calligraphy practice and came over to watch. I was about to keep watering when he grabbed my hand, stopping me. Girl, that's not how you water this plant. We had the same kind in our village. The leaves need some trimming, and don't water it too much anymore and you'll drown it. I took a closer look, and he was right, it was a bit too much. But I still snorted and talked back. What, I'm just afraid it's thirsty. He didn't catch my sarcasm. He picked up a clump of soil. This soil's no good either. Is there a garden around here? I'll take you to find some better soil. So we grabbed a pot and headed to the garden. He led me around looking, and finally crouched down in a corner, pointing at the dirt. This soil's perfect. Wow. In the middle of the day, two old folks practically halfway in the grave squatting in the dirt digging. I never thought after living half my life, I'd end up being taken care of like this. After digging the soil, we went back and repotted the plants. I stared at the plants in the new soil, and asked doubtfully, is this gonna work? Lotus nodded confidently, looking sure of himself. It'll definitely work. I brushed off the dirt from his sleeve, and said lightly, if it doesn't work, I won't let you practice calligraphy anymore. He got nervous right away. No way. Girl, don't worry. I promise I'll take good care of them. Lotus was right. After he got his hands on them, the plants did look way better than before. At least they all looked alive now. Every day I looked out the window and saw a little bit of life. We were having a pretty nice, easy time. But then, out of the blue, I got a call from my son. Right from the first word, his voice cracked with tears. Mom. That single word gave me goosebumps all over. I quickly cut him off. Just spit it out. He let out a long sigh. Then he finally told me what happened while I was away. So after Lotus the nanny suddenly ran off, he hired a new nanny to take care of the kid and manage the household. But then, one day they noticed bruises on the child. So they secretly installed a camera at home. That's how they found out the nanny was abusing the kid when they weren't around. They were furious. This kid came late in life. He's the family's treasure. They had screening issues earlier and went through over a decade of treatment before finally having him. Now with this mess, their first instinct was to call the police. But Qin Shokong stopped them. At this point, I was already pissed. Why would he stop them? Wasn't he always protecting his grandson too? My son seemed to wipe tears on the phone, then choked out. Dad got involved with that nanny. At that, I couldn't help but widen my eyes. My son kept going. Back then Qin Shokong shielded the nanny behind him, saying he wanted to be with her, and added, what do you know? At this age I've finally met my true love. If I don't act selfishly now, it'll be too late. My son was almost breaking down. Dad, you're getting old. There's no such thing as true love. She's only after your money. If you had no money, who would want an old man like you? But Qin Shokong wouldn't listen at all. He moved out to live with that woman. Before leaving he dropped a harsh line. If you don't bless us, then I don't have a son like you anymore. My son, with his voice choked up, said, Mom, please come back and talk some sense into Dad. What if she ends up swindling him out of everything? What's going to happen to our family then? That's when I couldn't just sit still. I quickly corrected him. I'm already divorced from him. I don't have any obligation to talk to him. Besides, we already split the assets. If she takes all his money, it's got nothing to do with me. He was stunned by what I said. Then soon he begged again. Mom, are you really going to just sit there and watch Dad go down the wrong path? I smiled. If I chose to get a divorce, it means I'm truly ready to never have anything to do with him again. This is something I can't handle, and I don't want to. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I looked up, and saw Heihua was listening intently too. Suddenly curious, I asked, why did you suddenly decide to come to a retirement home? I'd never asked him about it all this time, but I could pretty much guess the reasons. He gave an awkward smile. Even though I grew up in the countryside, and don't always catch people's hints, I can still tell when someone's looking down on me. I'm not stupid, right? I let out a scoff. You're pretty stupid. You stayed 2 months before you figured that out. He chuckled. He shook his head, looking a little bashful. We'd been living at the retirement home for about half a year, when suddenly one day a new person moved in. The moment I saw Qin Shokong, my eyebrow twitched. And he came sticking to me like glue, calling out, Ali non-stop. I quickly moved away from him, totally disgusted. What are you doing here? He instantly burst into tears. That woman was a liar. Every day she made me buy her this and that. In the end she took my card and ran off. Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The moment he heard me laugh, he cried even harder. It was pitiful. I muttered under my breath, serves you right. Then I pulled Heihua, who was just watching the drama, back inside. But after that, my days at the nursing home were peaceful. Qin Shokong kept coming around every few days to apologize. He'd even try to reminisce about the old days with me. Every time he showed up, Heihua would step in front of me glaring like a demon, hands on her hips, yelling at him to get lost. I thought it was kind of funny. So I teased him with his own words on purpose. Didn't you say marry a rooster, follow a rooster? Marry a dog, follow a dog. Hearing that from me, Hee-hwa opened her mouth. This line seems garbled, skipping. She held back forever, only saying he was worse than a pig or a dog. I'm not following him. She cracked me up so much I couldn't stand straight. Day by day passed by. Chin Shokong got more and more annoying. So that night, I sat on the bed and casually dropped a hint. I'm thinking of switching to another nursing home. Hee-hwa instantly jumped up from the bed. Sis, where are you going? I pretended to think for a moment. There's one in the east part of the city. I heard it's pretty good. And sure enough, she came up all eager. Can you take me? I haven't even finished learning my letters yet. No line 101 in input, skipped. I turned my head away and scoffed. After a long pause, I pretended to be reluctant and said, since you feel that way, all right. But first, I have a plan I want to carry out. One day, chatting with Hewa, she said she'd never seen the sea in her life. I thought, why not put the idea into action? What if one day I can't move anymore? After talking it out, I decided to take her to a seaside city for a few days. Leaving the nursing home, we started our trip. I took Hehua on the high-speed train. The whole way she kept marveling at how fast it was. I led her forward, teasing her from time to time. Look at you, you're so pathetic. He wasn't upset standing behind me. Haven't you seen the world before? Just take a good look. It's not a big deal, right? I held back a laugh and hummed in agreement. Then I took him to continue the trip. After checking into the hotel, I took him to the night market where young people hang out. 2 old ladies were eating ice cream on the curb, wincing and yelling that their teeth were gonna fall out. The next morning, we went to the beach. The sky and sea blended together, touched by the rising sun. Hehua and I sat on a bench by the shore, quietly waiting for the sun to rise. After who knows how long, Hehua suddenly spoke up. Sis, I think I've lived my life without any regrets. I was never favored by my parents since I was young. Then I met Chin Shokong, and all I wanted was to start a family. Follow my husband for the rest of my life. That was it. But Chin Shokong went to the city, and never came back. People in the village gossiped about me for half my life. I thought my biggest wish was to see him one more time. But when I actually did, I realized that wasn't what I wanted. So, I came to you. You taught me to read, showed me the world, and brought me to see the ocean. Only then did I realize how foolish I was, locking myself in the countryside, waiting for a man my whole life. I turned my head, and quietly looked at him. To be honest, right after my divorce, I felt lost and helpless too. Wasting most of my life on one man, and ending up like this. But after seeing my former students, and Hehua, I realized my life has been pretty fulfilling. So why should I feel sorry for myself? I guess I have no regrets either. We stayed at the beach for 2 more days. After all, at this age, you don't get many chances to come. Might as well use the chance to see more of the world. But because of the long journey, and catching a chill, I suddenly got a high fever that night. I lay weakly in bed, and heard Hehua gasp. Then he got all panicked like crazy, running around getting water and wringing out towels. Probably saw I wasn't getting better. He started making phone calls again. I was burning up with fever, barely conscious. I could only hear someone on the other end asking where he was. He was stammering and couldn't spit out a straight answer. I opened my mouth, wanting to tell him, but only a few weak sounds came out. So I saw him rush out of the room. In the middle of the night, he went knocking on someone's hotel door, asking which hotel this was. As my consciousness faded away piece by piece, I sank completely into darkness. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was a white ceiling, and the smell of disinfectant filled my nose. I turned my head, and there was Lanhua sleeping beside the bed. She's a light sleeper, so she woke up as soon as she heard me stir. She started, "Oh my, sis, you're finally awake. Let me go get a doctor to check you out." The doctor examined me, and said I caught a cold. But it gave me a real scare. Since I'm getting old, even a minor illness could be enough to send me off this world. I don't really have any regrets. But how could Lianhua handle? He was my last student. I still had more to teach him, so how could I leave first? Once I was fully recovered, Heihua and I hit the road back home. When we got back, I found out Chin Shokong couldn't stand the nursing home. He was kicking up a fuss to go back. But his son still held a grudge over what happened before, and flat out refused. So Chin Shokong started causing trouble everywhere, even going to his son's workplace, claiming his son wouldn't support him. The neighbors all spat on him, and that would have been enough to drown the son. He had no choice, so he had to bring Chin Shokong home to take care of him. Every day was absolutely miserable. Since Chin Shokong was gone, Heihua and I decided to just stay at that nursing home. Maybe when you're old you get attached to old places. You don't like moving. 2 months later, the son suddenly showed up at the nursing home. He looked at me like he wanted to say something but held back, insisting I go back with him. I was curious too, so I went back with him. As soon as I walked in, I saw Jin Shokung lying on the couch, one hand shaking in the air, his face all twisted, mouth crooked, eyes slanted. The moment he saw me, his trembling hand pointed at me, tears rolling down, and drool dripping. I frowned, looked at the son. He sighed, and explained, Dad ran into that woman a while back. He went to get his money back from her, only to find out she'd given it all to the son from her second marriage. The money's gone for good. Dad was so furious he had a stroke, and ended up like this. I looked at the man on the couch, and suddenly felt complicated inside. Even though after I learned about what he did back then, I'd lost all feelings for him, still seeing him like this, I couldn't help but sigh. So I told the son to leave first, and sat down in front of Jin Shokung. He was crying, his cloudy eyes full of regret. I sat there quietly, without saying a word. After a long while I stood up, and said softly, You're already like this, so I won't curse you out. It's too pitiful. Take care of yourself. With that, I walked step by step toward the door. I knew this was probably the last time we'd ever see each other. Decades of marriage were completely gone. Days passed by. Hefwa's calligraphy kept getting better. Now he could even write out quite a few ancient poems from memory. He recited them over and over, but his favorite was still that one poem. You know, after all, he grew up with the yellow earth, so he naturally felt close to farmers. And my plants were getting more and more lively. They grew lush and green on the windowsill. One day, after we finished dinner, we were taking a walk outside. Suddenly, someone said someone came to visit me. I went over to see, and it turned out to be that student who came to see me before. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he walked up to me eagerly. Teacher Shen, do you still remember me? I nodded. Of course I do. Then he spoke a bit nervously. Teacher Shen, the day I heard what you said, I went back and thought about it carefully. Soon after, I quit my delivery driver job, and used my savings to start a small factory. It's still not that big now, but my income is way better than before. As he said this, he smiled a little sheepishly. And I also signed up for the adult college entrance exam. I'm about to give it a shot. I was instantly happy for him, my heart full of relief. See? I told you, you got this. Never just give up after finishing one chapter of life. Keep exploring the unknown path ahead. After the student left, Hehua came over and looked at me, and asked, Sis, is this your student? I nodded. Yeah.